Good morning, I'm Jason Breach from the Axminster Skills Centre. This morning we're going to go through the Axcaliber Stile and rail catchers to show you how you can do basically wooden doors. As much as it's a door making system, I would prefer to class it as a jointing system. It's a way of interlocking two bits of wood, works on modern glues, making it a lot stronger. We can do a whole range of things with this. So your catchers, I've actually been and got a few out. We have a shaker style, we have an OG style, so you can come and have a look at those. They've got a bit more of a curve on here. This is the shape we're going to get, so this is the moulding. The other one being the shaker as a chamfer, very flat, very traditional. The last cutter is a panel cutter, a raised panel cutter for the OG panel here. Some of these you can buy as a set, you can buy the cutters of individuals. So that's the cutters we're going to use, really useful. What we need to work out now really is our door. So we want to make a little door. I've drawn this up, I've expanded the sizes a little bit to make it easier to see and understand what we're doing. So what we've taken is our door. Most doors for kitchens are 720 high. This one we're going to make 400 wide. So we've got 400. We know the rails on the outside are 50 mil. What we want to work out is the length of this top rail and the bottom rail. So if we take the 400 minus the two outside, so 50 and 50 is 100, so we're now down to 300. The depth of the moulding on the groove here, if we come down to this, is actually 10 mil deep from the top edge to the base here. Same on the moulded edge there. So we need to add that back on because this interlocks into that side frame with the moulding. So we have 10 and 10. So we've got our 300 plus the 20 becomes 320. So we can write this in here. Okay. The panel, we can also work out the lengths. So the panel will be the same width, but we're going to use a solid wood panel. So this needs to expand and contract. So we're actually going to make it just a little bit smaller. So I've taken 2 millimeters off of that to allow it to expand and contract. The length, we have 720 inferior on this, so we go 720 minus 50 and 75, so it's 125. So we're now down to 595, plus we actually want our moulding. So we're 615 for the panel length. Okay. The thicknesses I've already done. The maximum thickness we can go to on this is 21 mil. The minimum we can go down to is 19. So I'm actually aiming for 20 mil on our material thickness for all our upright rails. The panel, I'm doing 19 mil thick. So I've already done all my machining. Everything's cut to size and already prepped. So we'll put our board out the way a minute. Gives you an idea of the little door we're going to try and make. This isn't glued, this is just purely pushed together. There's an interlock joint at the moment. We now want to obviously set the router up, so we're going to move our board out the way again. We're going to take one of our cutters, we're going to go with the OG one. I want the router, so for this we're using the Bosch router because it makes it so simple to take that in and out. We can load our cutter. A little bit of a tighten. Next thing I want to do with this is just check the speed. I prefer to take the speed right down and increase it when it's in the table, listening to what's happening. Too fast a speed will cause problems with this. That can go back in. So we haven't positioned anything there, that's just purely in place. Next thing I'm going to grab is our bits of wood. So as I said, I've already done quite a lot of prep on this. So with these, I can lay them out as how I would like my door. So Richard's just going to come in. I've already got our 2 arrows which indicate where the moulded edge is going to go. I can do the top and bottom rail with a moulded edge. We're going to make one door. If you're making 20, it can get confusing on which bits have got to be moulding where because there's 2 different cuts to do on this. So on the end grain mouldings, I do a little cross. This is all my face side, so this is what I want to see is the finished door. So this indicates the end grain moulding, the arrows indicate the side grain moulding. Okay, so everything's been laid out, we've got a clear indication of what we're cutting. First bit we actually want to cut is our end grain. So we're going to come across the fibres. We grab a little bit we've done before. We've got our bit of wood. We're going to take this cut out. Now the reason we do that first is anything else that gets torn out, break out on here, will get cleaned up when we come down the side grain. So it gives us a better finish. So all the end grain sections have got to be done first. So a lot of prep needs to be done. Make sure everything's cut to size, nice and square. Got a couple of options with this. We can go with something cheese-slot, sacrificial bit of wood, something to push with. The problem I find with this is everything has got to be set dead parallel from the fence to the cheese-slot. Can make it a little bit fiddly. So my scenario, what I prefer to do is use some kind of sludge. So this we made up. This securely holds our bit of wood, goes into the groove. This is all adjustable, something to hold it with. Really good. So with our catcher, we have 3 sections. We have top, we have a middle bit, we have the curve on the bottom here. So when we're doing the cut, we're using either the top 2 or the bottom 2 sections. We're not using the whole 3 sections in one. So we will actually, for the first cut, we're going to be using the bottom 2. So we're going to bring the cutter up, we're going to set up that. Then we will actually lower the cutter and we can use the top 2. The other problems that people tend to have with this is imagining what they're cutting. So we can kind of cheat and show you what we've got. We have that there. We can turn this over. We can go to there. So we have our moulding. We have the end grain section. So what we want to set up first of all is our piece of wood in here. So I can lock it down, get it secured, and just really from sighting in, get an idea of where we're cutting. If you have something pre-done, it can be quite nice to put it back in, preset it. Now the important thing here is we do need something as a step on the top here, because that's where the joint comes together with the side bit. We need something on the back. If this is too thin here where we get the groove down the side on the back edge, this splinters off, breaks out. So this needs to be quite a relevant thickness, as does that little step. Looks quite nice. We've set the height. Just really from sighting through, if you, like I say, you have something pre-done, you can cheat. Or if you're going to do a batch of these, you might want to put them in, get exactly the same. This one's slightly thicker. So, I'll go back with our bit of wood a minute. Okay, that looks quite nice. If you're going to do this as a range of doors when you cut everything to length, the chances are you're going to have something as a leftover piece, some short bit you can do a setup cut with, check that everything's going to cut nicely and where you want. So we can use that scrap bit as our setup block before we actually put the work in. So we've set the cutter height. We can now bring the fence forward. And we're working with the sledge, we haven't got to worry about everything now being dead parallel. As in the aspect, we have got to work up the T-slot. So we're going to bring the fence forward. Now in between the cutter, lower down, I'll show you on the other cutter that we've got in the tray in a second. There's a bearing which tells us maximum depth of cut. The fascias, I'm just bringing in, closing those down to reduce the overhang gap, make it easier to pass between the two. Go back to our ruler again, we want to get level with the bearing. Maximum depth of cut's achieved by the bearing. So as I said with the catcher, so Rich, if you want to just come in and have a look at this, we have our catcher faces, we then have a bearing in between. That indicates our maximum depth. Always got to get back to that. If we don't achieve maximum depth on either of the two cuts we're going to do, the door won't fully go together. So that tells us on there, so that's our bearing in between here. You can see how I've turned the cutter so I can see it. Get a little bit of a seesaw action. Want to check the fence. That's nice. You can hear the bearing goes round there, I can feel it. Double check everything's nice and tight. Next thing I want to do, just going to start the router, just make sure, listen to what's happening. I want to set my speed. That's done. Occasionally it can be worth trying to put clear bubble in. This is really just to stop anything being deflected out, wood shavings or anything. So this comes with the table. We'll put this in place. What we need to check now, is it going to interfere with anything that's going through here? That looks good. Okay, so this is really just to help with the extraction a little bit as well. So this is our scrap bit at the moment. We're going to do our test cut with. Just check the fascias. That's all done. So we'll test this end grain cut. Now the important bit with this now is your safety bits. You want your earmuffs, it's going to make a bit of noise. You want your goggles. Okay, so we need to do those. Extractor we can put on. Router. The red bit comes in round. Through. Back out. So just by coming in and having a look, let's see what we've got. And this is going to help you with the setup. And at the moment, the back edge here actually is a little bit slim. We've actually got a really big step on the top here. We can actually raise the cutter up and narrow this down, but increase what we're going to get on the back. That will add more strength to where the panel goes in. So I can even put a bit of wood back in. It's not going to give me a true reading. I can wind the cutter up a little bit. All I'm really looking at when I do this cut now is what it's going to leave me on that top edge. Go in again, we check everything's nice and square against the fence on the sledge. We're into the gap. Gently through, let's have a look again. So what we're looking at, we've narrowed this down. This looks better. This isn't going to give us a true reading because we've already cut that, but that's narrow, that's more in line with what we want. That's good. So we can put that out the way, we can get to work now. So our workpiece goes in, we slide right up, and on this we're going to see the face edge upwards. So this is the front of the door, we lock it down, we can start, we come out round. Undo, we turn it round, come back well away from the cutter with this, we go back in. We need to adjust this so it's safer to turn the router off. This rail's slightly wider. Come round, exactly the same. So obviously with these you would do all your end grain sections. You want to do them all at the same time, get them done. Now we're doing one door, so we've done the 4 ends. We can even do centre rails on projects, so therefore again, that would need to be done on the end grain. They go all the way through, they're nice and clean. Don't push too quick. Give the cutter time to clear it. So you're actually cutting it effectively. If you push too fast, you'll actually tear the grain a bit more. So all the ends are done. Nice, neatly done. Nicely held. A lot safer. From there, we can move our fence back. Going to move our bubble screen out the way. And want to turn the router off at the mains. We then need to match what we have there for our side grain bits, for the long mouldings. So they're going to go onto the table. Best way of setting that cut up is using what we've just used, what we've just cut. So again, we can come into the table, we can have a look now. We've just cut on the top. We turn the work over, and this is where the reversible bit in the title comes from. We turn it over, they go onto here. What we're trying now to get is the tooth here level with the shoulder. So we can undo the clip on the router, we can wind this down, the fine adjuster. The best way of feeling this is pencil. Just have an idea of, so that's a little bit low, just come up a little bit. Gently turn it round so you can see a bit. That feels quite good. So the pencil tip, I push down on the work. Small little lip, no, that's gone, that's good. So that's set that up. So the first cut was face up. Now everything's got to go face down. That's important where we did all our marks, so we've got a clear label of where the boards have got to go on the table. First bit done. The next bit we can do is bring our fence back out. Back to our ruler. We line up with the bearing again. We look, we check we're nice and level. We can put the ruler out of the way. A couple of other things that can really help. Now we don't want to do this cut in one pass. We've set up for maximum depth of cut. So just by taking the G-clamp and a piece of wood, we can G-clamp this on the back of the table, hopefully, to give us a repeat stop point. So one side, one on the other side. So those actually now meet the back of the fence nice and neatly. So you can see the fence is on here, both sides. So it actually means now we can undo the fence. We can move things forward, but we've got a reset point ready to go. Why do we want to move the fence forward? We can adjust how much cut we're taking. If we do this in one pass, it's 10mm deep by whatever sections we're taking out. It tends to pull the grain fibres out in the front. When you put your panel in, you see this. We can do it as 2 passes, get less chipping, less breakout. Cleaner finish, won't show where the panel goes in, nicer finish. Takes a fraction more time, but less clean up later. So we set our fence. Next we want is some way of pushing down on the table. Simple featherboard. These will go on. We put this into the groove. We slide it up to where the work's going to be. We'll take one of the work pieces, go with one of the long pieces just to go put in underneath. This is designed to push pressure down onto the table. You can see it also stops the work being kicked back. So nice pressure on there. We're doing something reasonably short. If you're doing something a lot longer, it can be worth putting featherboards horizontally as well. So as long as we can hit that little box, we can feed through, we can pull it at the other end. A lot safer to do. So the feather boards really have a use for this. Now again, we can use our scrap piece that we use for the setup. We take our pencil, we can have face edge. That's going to go face down on the table. It's important that you understand we've turned the boards over. Something to push with. Back to the earmuffs. Gently in. All the way through. Now the reason for doing what we've just done, we want to be able to check the height now where the two bits of wood are going together. So this is actually, it's fraction out, not a lot. That's pretty good. People get worried here because they go, if it doesn't go together, it won't, because we've moved the fence slightly forward, so we've got the gap off the piece of wood to do the second cut. But that's a nice finish. So we know now we have our catcher height. We put our setup blocks out the way, put the earmuffs on. So this time when the work goes down, we've done our crosses, they're already done. We have our arrow, goes face down on the table facing the fence. So we've done our first pass, we can undo the fence, we can now move it back against the two stop blocks we put in behind, lock the fence back up. So we're fully back to our set now. So what we're going to take out is that little gap that we've got on the back here. The joint will fully go together. So I'll put them back in behind again. Moving our bits of wood around a little bit. What we should find now, we have 4 bits, they'll go together nicely. Gaps close up nicely, nice and square, everything finishes nice and flush here. The mouldings come together nicely. bit, everything closes up. If there's any gaps on here, you want to check you've gone fully back with where the bearing is. So if a gap is appearing on here, the chances are you haven't gone fully back on about one of the cuts. Chances are, hopefully it's this one. So we have our frame. We can now do the panel. So we can have the panel that fits in. Now, the panel on these, kind of have a couple of options. We can either go with a raised panel, more traditional, especially with this OG style moulding. With a shaker style door, you just have a flat panel. So that's natural wood. Again, we've got to remember this has got to be allowed to expand and contract. So the panel we've actually done for the door we have here is actually about 2 mm smaller in width to allow that expansion and contraction. If you were going to do veneered panels, so veneered plywood or MDF, they could be cut to the exact side, they could be glued in. A solid wood panel needs to be a loose panel to allow it to expand and contract. It's got to allow that movement. So we're going to do a solid wood one. We'll put these out the way for a second. We've got our cutter. Going to put that on there. We switch the router off. We're just going to move the featherboard along for a second. We need a bit of access into the table. So we're going to change the cutter and the router so we can drop that out. Change the cutters, make sure you have good 2/3 of those shanks held in the collet. Check it's nice and tight. Check the insert ring out, we need a bigger diameter, we have a bigger diameter cutter. Bigger cutters, we need to remember to reduce the speed again. So again we put that back into the body of the router. We safely put the door rail cutter out of the way. Now to adjust the cut on this, we can either bring the cutter up or down, or we can move the fence forward and back. I prefer to set the fence parallel with the bearing on the top and bring the cutter up as we want to reveal the pattern, make sure then it actually fits into the groove of the rail and the door that we've just done. So we'll put the spanner out of the way so we can build everything else back in place again now. So we can look off the fence, we can bring the fascias in. We're trying to get as close as we can without hitting them. We can lock off each of the bolts. Double check these, you don't want these moving halfway through. We go back to our ruler. We can undo the fence both sides. We gently come forward. We lock off. We're back to maximum depth of cut. We're hitting the bearing, that spins nicely. That's the easiest way of testing that. Just get a straight edge, little ruler, remember where you put it. That goes round, so maximum depth of cut's achieved. We can also bring the featherboard back in. The other thing we can do with this, while we haven't got this directly in place at the moment, is just say it across the table, how much cut are we taking? Okay, we don't want to go, again, do this in one cut. If you do this in one cut, you're going to end up with more tear out. It's quite physical as well to push through. So we're doing it more than one pass. First of all, we can check that we're going to fit the groove we've just made in the door rails, but also we get a cleaner finish. So that's not too bad. Taking quite a large section out. Once we've done the first pass, we show you, let you have a look. So we put our featherboard back in place. We push down, get a little bit of pressure. Want to be able to move it. Just going to bring it to my right. It's a little bit off centre. We want to check again that we can push it through there, that it's actually doing what we're requesting. Another sensible thing, help things glide across the table. We're going to go with a dry PFT lubricant. That won't affect any finish on the wood or anything, but it will just help things glide a lot easier. So we're set up really for our first pass. The only other thing we want to look at is the speed. This being a much bigger cutter needs to run a lot slower. So this is actually dropped right down on the lowest, setting on the router. I can start it. I've set my speed. I've hardly come up at all. If you run this too fast, the problem we find is this will act like a whirlwind. The extractor won't pull the shavings out, they get thrown back at you. By reducing the speed, you've got more chance of that extractor pulling them out. So everything's set. We now need something to push with. So simple board, glued and screwed together, well back out of the way. The front edge is sacrificial. So you can come and have a look at that. We've got our board edge. This stops me stretching my fingers out, put them in the way. It also means I can trim the board as it gets smaller, something to grip with my hand. This gives me a way of pushing through the fence parallel with what I want to do. Nice long straight section, gives me something to put my hand down on. So I know as I'm behind here, I'm well away from that cutter. Next we want to look at on our panel, this is going to be our face edge, the front of the door, what we want to see. That's going to go down on the table. We were going to cut end grain, rotate the board side grain, end grain, side grain. So as you look at your board from the back of it, it's actually going to turn anti-clockwise. By doing that, any breakout and splintering we get when coming across the end grain, we'll clean up coming down the grain. So that's positioned. So we turn the extractor on. Follow all the way through. Okay, first pass. We've actually done. If I hold this up a little bit, you can probably get into there. You can see how much material we've taken out. It's quite a big cut for a router. Okay. The other beautiful thing, we just have a look at it. As much as we've cut across the end grain, everything is actually still nice and clean. We're not tearing the grain. We're getting quite a good finish. So from there, what we're going to do is just come down level with the table again. We bring the cutter up. Next pass, so we've raised it quite a bit. I'll do one cut across the end grain and then we'll turn it over and show you what we've cut. So we've just changed our cut from where we are here. You can see how much deeper this is now. We're starting to get our little steps. So this panel will probably take a good 3 passes to get to our finished position of where we want maximum height so it fits into our door. But again, we're still getting a beautiful clean end grain here. If you do it in one, you're going to tear this out. So we can put the whole panel through there. So what we now need to start to do is look at how much more we need. The aim is our panel will fit straight into that little groove. So we've got a little bit more to come up. So again, we can raise the cutter and the router again. We lock it off. If you have an offcut of your panel material, it could be worth using it as a setup. At this stage, while the panels still don't fit, you'd put all your panels through. Remove the bulk at the same stage. We're nearly there. We've got a little bit more I'm just going to come up with. Okay, that'll fit into our groove. It's a fraction tight, so it might be nice just to take a little bit more off. We'll put it back through there. We've still got to go down the grain. We're going to come back around the end. Now at this stage I would put it through twice, just to make sure we're getting everything nice and clean. So you're going to put it through once, then go back down it again. It's important to keep your hand pressure nice and stable on this, keep it equal. So everything back out the way, we turn the extractor on. Do the router, so we go on. I push down my fingers. So hopefully we should find this will fit into our groove fractionally tight, so I'd be tempted to bring the cutter up just a fraction. We don't want this being too tight. If this is too tight when we push it in, there's the risk it will snap this fin section on the back. This bit. Push it in too firmly, you can snap that off. So, still quite firm. Tiny little adjustment. Okay, so we have our panel. We've removed quite a lot of material. From memory, this is 33mm long by 17mm deep as a cut. So a very big cut for a router. The beautiful thing on this, how clean this all is. It's not going to take a lot of cleaning up, so a little bit more time on the table can save a lot of hand sanding. If you're going to stain these doors before you glue them in, you need to do all of that before you do it. So everything here would need sanding. The back will need sanding. If you're going to stain it, you stain it before it's put in. Because once it's in place, you can't get to it. If you don't stain it before you glue it together, if the door panel shrinks, being natural wood, which it can, you end up with a white line. So from our door there, we go to our vise. We want the rest of our panel frame that we started making. We can load it in the vise. Let's just move a few things. Our setup blocks. That's our 4 bits of wood we've just done. We can test everything will go together. So the bottom rail goes in. We push our panel in. We slide the top rail down. We put the other side on. That gives us our little door. When we come to glue these up, fits nice and firm. The only place we need to put glue will be in the interlock moulding area. So on there, the internal face and the recess edge. Now the beauty I think of this is you can make your doors any size you like. So you can even make your own kitchen, you can do those odd size doors. Now, as I said when we started this just isn't about making wooden doors. You can do a whole range of things like this. Couple of other props we've done over a period of time in here. Just hold a few things. So we have double panel door, something wider, centre rail, done exactly the same. All you need to do is measure that, work that length out. We'll do the moulding both ends first, then do your side moulding. That looks really nice. You might want to do curved top door, a little bit more work. You'd need to make the templates up for the curve, cut it all out, mould that first of all with a straight cutter, then do the moulded edge. Not impossible. You can make complete bits of furniture, so something like a bath panel. Quite nice to do. You could make a complete wardrobe, so don't go thinking this is just about doors. The beauty thing I think about this is how easy that is to do, how quick it is to do. Once you're set up, got your router, if you follow the simple guides we've just done, you can make anything.